work, on the couple days before, and it just didn't feel powerful enough. It didn't feel like that you were doing that many things that were really that exciting against a lot of decks. I mean, you had Pox, which was like good against it's really good against Zoo if you get it turn 2.
Yeah.
If you don't Pox them turn 2, like their deck is actually a lot better than yours. Like it has like a better mid game. You really have to disrupt their mana with Pox, and actually be able to establish some sort of pressure. To take advantage of that. I mean, you don't really have that much that you don't have the sort of inevitability that you had with Life from the Loam back last season. So I got here and I had decided I was playing Zoo, and I had decided I was playing with 4 Noble Hierarch, 4 Wild Nacatl, 4 Knight of the Reliquary, 4 Path, 4 Tarmogoyf, 4 Bolt, 1 Elspeth. The rest of my deck was in question. So I talked to some people. Brad Nelson had just written an article just this past week about his sort of like Woolly Thoctor negate Zoo deck, and actually I wasn't a huge fan of that specific deck when I first looked at it, but after I played some games last night, Woolly Thoctor began to grow on me. He's actually just huge. Like, in particular when you have the ability to accelerate him out with Noble Hierarch. Turn 2 Thoctor is just so big. And I mean, against other Zoo decks, in the Zoo mirror, the games really come down to just big guy attrition. Who can stick big creatures, and Woolly Thoctor just gives you another big creature. I mean, he's not Knight of the Reliquary. He's not as good as Knight of the Reliquary. Yeah. But if your opponent, you and your opponent are trading removal with Knight of the Reliquary, and you have and your Tarmogoyfs, I mean, you have Woolly Thoctor. So, I mean, he also is a reasonable threat against the combo decks. I mean, in particular with Noble Hierarch, he can come up fast enough to just present a really significant clock. I decided to only run the 2 Negates main. I actually think Negate is a remarkably versatile card in this format. I mean, it's obviously good against any sort of combo deck, like a Scape Shift deck. It's good against Dark Depths if they have to try and go for the Thopter combo, whatever. If they don't turn 2 kill you like my last opponent did every game. But I wasn't. It actually is. It actually is a lot better than you'd think in the mirror, because in the mirror match, I mean, like I said, the games really come down to big creature attrition. And I actually had a game against Todd Anderson, who I played in round 4, who I unfortunately lost to. But I had one game where I was able to protect one of my Knight of the Reliquaries with Negate. And I mean, that would have turned the game around if I had drawn a spell for the rest of the game instead of all hand. But yes, I mean, the basic structure. One of the other things that's actually pretty cool about the deck, I think, is the Storing Wildwood. The new green-white manland is actually the fact that in the Zoo mirror he can actually just stop Wild Nacatls. He's just bigger than the majority of the creatures, other than the big guys. And he actually, the fact that he can chump, he can block Bitter Blossom tokens, and he can chump a 20/20 are all like not trivial things. And he also fixes the mana. Yeah. So it's a green-white land. The deck has a lot of colors of mana, obviously. And having a second, the deck's actually fairly mana heavy as far as a Zoo deck is concerned. It has 22 lands plus 4 Noble Hierarchs. And having 2 of those be creature lands actually helps a lot in terms of making sure that your draws have enough action.
And there's so many. How many actual lands in there? There's a ton of.
There's 12 fetch lands. One of every relevant, every non-black Ravnica duel, and 2 basic lands, 2 man lands. So the sideboard has the Meddling Mage plan still. I think Meddling Mage, in particular with Negate, is a lot better. All right. Meddling Mage. Actually, Meddling Mage was one of the most disappointing cards in my Austin sideboard. It was just because people had ways to deal with it, more ways to deal with it than we thought that they would. But here with Negate, Meddling Mage can actually you can Meddling Mage a key thing, and they don't just go okay, well, you use my removal in your Meddling Mage and then cast my key spell. It's like, okay, well, if you protect your Meddling Mage or just force him to use your removal in your Meddling Mage, you still have negates to stop the big spells. There's the Ghost Quarter for Dark Depths, random Dredge, Living End Hate. We actually specifically went with Tormod's Crypt because it's actually worse than Ravenous Trap, specifically against Dredge. Yeah. But I know there were at least the Living End decks have been like reasonably popular, or at least had I knew at least one person who was playing Living End, and it was a deck that is pretty rough.
Ravenous Trap doesn't trigger off
Ravenous Trap
too
doesn't
often.
do anything against them. So. And then Jit and the I only went with 2 Damping Matrix because a lot of the Thopter Depths decks I mean, they're preparing for Dabbing Matrix, so they have a lot of ways. A lot of them will have Sphinx of Zwar or Moloku, or I mean, Moloku is shut down by it, But I mean, they have bounce spells. It doesn't end the game like a lot of people are like, oh, you just Dabbing Matrix them.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those cards that you can't really afford to have too many cards that aren't presenting an aggressive front. To your opponent.
Don't want to dilute your main deck too much.
And then the one Miser's Baneslayer Angel, because,
you have to play it. You have to play it, right?
You have a contractual agreement that
I signed on.
So all your sideboards are all 14 cards plus, always Baneslayer.
I mean, most of them have the Baneslayer in the main deck. But I actually think, entirely seriously, I think Baneslayer as a main deck card got a lot worse. Since people have started playing Bant Charm addition to Path. A lot of people will have just a lot of ways to deal with it. But I mean, like I said, the Zoo matchup just comes down to a battle of big men, and Baneslayer is a card that it's another big guy, and I mean I haven't played the format enough to know if having a Baneslayer in my sideboard is correct. But I mean, I like having a Baneslayer in my sideboard.
Feels good.
And it can't be that bad. I mean, it's a card that if they don't kill it, it wins the game pretty close to immediately. So
noticeably missing no Punishing Fire.
Yeah.
Go over the Burn Willow stuff.
I mean, I think that Punishing Fire is actually potentially still a very good card. I mean, that's another card that matters in the Zoo mirror. Punishing Fire was a card that can really take over a game once you're in some sort of stalemate position. The problem is that Bant Charm is just so much more important. Bant Charm, I think, is one of the best cards in the format, actually. I think Bant Charm is incredibly versatile and just really good against everything that like, every good deck is doing. I mean, it's not good against Scapeshift, but I don't think Scapeshift is a particularly good deck. But I mean, against Zoo and against Dark Depths, which I think are the two most important decks in the format, it's just awesome against both. Both halves of it are good against Dark Depths, being able to kill, all three parts. I mean, if they have a removal spell, you can kill their Thopter Foundry, you can kill 2020, it's just so good. And I think that it's worth stretching your mana in decks that can potentially support Bant Charm to play Bant Charm.
So someone was talking about you talking about Elves deck. Not really your style, but what do you think about it here?
I think Elves is actually a very good deck. I saw a couple people. I actually also think that Elves is a very, very difficult deck to play. I think that Elves is a deck that is it's not a good idea to pick up Elves and go play in a tournament, because there are just so many complex interactions, and needing to know the various sort of cycles of Primal Command and what order to do all these things in, that, I mean, you're either going to make mistakes and lose or just time out. I mean, it's particularly bad on Moto, as I mentioned in my article. That you just can't play, you can't finish matches. You can't finish games with Elves.
Yeah, you can do the infinite life in real life, but on Moto, you're like, can't.
So, yeah, and I think that... I think that that's a good choice for someone who has taken the time to practice with it. I think that it unfortunately is incidentally hit by a lot of the Thopter Depths hate. Things like Krovak's Ascended Hero, things like Knight of Soul's Betrayal, even just Dark Blast. Dark Blast is one of the best cards against Elves. Although Elvish Archdruid actually makes it a lot more resilient to that than a lot of those decks were in the past.
So if you would make any changes, I know you picked up a couple losses, so maybe you thought of like any changes with those losses.
I actually feel
your draws weren't optimal or something.
I mean, I actually feel like the deck's very solid. I really like pretty much everything it has going on. I mean, it's possible that my sideboard could be improved, because I mean, was my swaps are wrong. I didn't really map out what goes out and in for what. There's probably too many cards for some matchups, not enough for others. But I mean, it's roughly there. I mean, I've been happy with how I was playing. I lost to a very similar deck against Todd Anderson. He had the more aggressive deck with Curd Apes.
Tribal Flames.
He didn't have Tribal Flames.
No,
but he had Curd Apes where I have Noble Hierarchs.
Okay.
And he had Ranger of Eos in his sideboard. Otherwise, I think our decks are he had Lightning Helix too. He didn't have Negate.
Okay.
So I mean, otherwise, I think our decks are very similar. I'm actually a big. I actually had a long conversation when I was playtesting with Ben Stark last night, which was the playtesting I did for this tournament. I ran into Ben Stark in the conference room of the hotel that we're staying in, and played for 2 hours. That was my playtesting for the tournament. And I actually think one thing we talked about was I had Helixes in my deck. Then we played some games, and I sort of thought about it. And Helix actually is just one of the worst cards. It's like not in the Zoo the Zoo mirrors, unless there's Tribal Flames like Rush Zoo. It's actually really bad. It's actually like just Lightning Bolt is one of the worst cards in your deck against them. And Lightning Helix is just that much worse.
Yeah.
Lightning Bolt, obviously, I mean, it's a great card, but I mean, it's not. It doesn't deal with what matters. You know, what matters in that matchup. I mean, obviously, there can be draws where you're getting beat down by Wild Nacatl and you want a Lightning Bolt.